about shortchanging safety or any of those things. I have that's garage is not my. Nope. Have a seat, Mr. Taylor. Thank you. Garage is not my forte. This is just me having a conversation and acknowledging what our plans are moving forward. So moving forward, Safari at the Quarry presentation by Mr. Michael Goldberg. We'll bring you on up. You can have a seat here. Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you. Good. If you want to press that button right there, and you're active.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Goldberg, and I reside in the Shadow Hills subdivision in northern Wicomico County. I've come to speak about several closely related topics that are of deep concern, which involve, one, the use and environmental sensitivity of the 234-acre county-owned sand quarry site on Connolly Mill Road, which has long been slated for park development. Two, the impacts of the Safari at the Quarry events to be held on the site, and three, the application of Salisbury zoning ordinance with respect to use of the site. In 2019, the 234-acre site to be known as Connolly Mill Park was donated to Wicomico County with the intent of developing a low-impact park to benefit the residents of Salisbury and Wicomico County and to protect the site's many environmental features. It was also the intention to keep the existing borrow pits in production for a limited time to provide fill material for the county landfill. Connolly Mill Park's open green space is truly breathtaking, replete with pine forests, a 22-acre lake, 2 creeks buffered by non-tidal wetlands, and a network of hiking-biking trails, thus offering many outdoor recreational opportunities. The parkland is part of a 7-mile continuous greenway extending from Sussex County to the north prong of the Wicomico River and provides natural habitat for a wide variety of wildlife, including certain federally protected species. Of particular importance, Connolly Mill Park is also crossed by the Paleo Channel, which is the underground source of Salisbury's potable water supply. The Paleo Channel is designated by the Maryland Department of Planning as an area of critical state concern. Unfortunately, ongoing development within the Paleo Channel's watershed places this critical resource at risk for further contamination. The county was initially reticent to accept the land donation because environmental site assessments revealed the presence of on-site contaminants, including lead and arsenic. These toxic elements remain persistent in the environment and will eventually infiltrate into subsurface aquifers and enter surface water bodies, such as the Wicomico River, through stormwater runoff. The environmental assessments determined that years of illegal ATV and dirt bike use were a likely source of the contamination, a problem that is still occurring and now with even greater frequency since the existence of the site has been revealed to the world through social media promotion of the forthcoming Safari at the Quarry events. Eventually, out of recognition for the need to protect the Paleo Channel and natural environment from further contamination, as well as other imperatives, the county accepted the land donation with the intention of establishing a low-impact recreational park, which has been heartily endorsed by the Wicomico County Natural Resource Advisory Committee, the Department of Recreation, Parks and Tourism, and the Wicomico Environmental Trust, among other organizations. Just imagine the benefits of combining the natural environment of Connolly Mill Park with the ball fields at the adjacent Henry S. Parker Athletic Complex. A truly extraordinary multi-purpose facility will be born in the midst of this rapidly urbanizing area, which will serve the diverse recreational needs of all Salisbury and county residents for many generations to come. But now, acting alone, the county executive, Julie Giordano, has brought development of Connolly Mill Park and the associated protections of the Paleo Channel and other natural resources to a screeching halt. She did this under the veil of darkness without informing either the public or the county council. Using a loophole in the county charter in September 2023, the county executive unilaterally entered into a contract known as the Memorandum of Understanding with a private sector event promoter, Livewire Media. The MOU is a lease agreement that gives Livewire exclusive use of the Connolly Mill Park property to stage multiple off-road events known as Safari at the Quarry, for which they will charge participants an entrance fee of up to $160. So, unless you can afford an off-road vehicle and pay the entrance fee to this private corporation, all persons are otherwise banned from entering the property at any time and for any reason. The inequity is undeniable. Under this lease agreement, the county is only to receive a meager 10% of profits in lieu of the payment of upfront rent or fees. Considering the costs of site preparation, deputy sheriffs to control traffic, and other costs to be borne by the county, the net profits, if any, will be negligible and little tax revenue is likely to be generated. It's a bad deal for all county taxpayers. There's a common misconception that Safari at the Quarry is a single, one-and-done Jeep event to take place on May 4th and 5th. But in fact, the lease specifically sanctions 4 separate events this year for Jeeps, Broncos, open wheeling, and quads. The second event is already being advertised, and there is no limit as to the number of additional events that can be held, subject only to mutual agreement between the parties to the lease. Livewire intends to grow these events on a massive scale. Their social media site advertises their desire to build a community of 4x4 culture around this amazing facility, and their website proclaims, "Dream it, build it, grow it." The intent is clear. Kill Connolly Mill Park for public use, make it a permanent private venue exclusively for 4x4 users, and expand the size and number of events to approach the scale of similar events being promoted by Livewire in Ocean City, which attract up to 1,700 vehicles and 10,000 spectators. These recurring events can only contribute to the environmental degradation of the property, the Paleo Channel, and the Wicomico River, and are not the highest and best use of this environmentally sensitive land. Thus, the future of Connolly Mill Park is in jeopardy. The county executive has now caused development of the park to be removed from the capital improvement plan and consequently from the Tri-County Council's comprehensive economic development strategy. The promise of Connolly Mill Park to serve all residents of Salisbury and Wicomico County, whether rich or poor, and to protect its vital natural resources, including the Paleo Channel, has been broken. All of this being said, the Salisbury mayor and the city council actually have the authority to immediately stop these off-road events. Although Connolly Mill Park is owned by Wicomico County, it lies entirely within the corporate limits of the city of Salisbury and is therefore subject to Salisbury's Title 17 zoning code. Pursuant to Title 17, the property zone classification is R8A, residential. Use of the property for off-road events is not permitted in Zone R8A, and neither are they permitted by special exception or ordinance permit. There is no evidence that the county has sought an amendment, modification, or change of zone to allow for the off-road events. But even if they had, Title 17 specifically requires a public hearing and at least 14 days advance notice thereof. This has not been done. Additionally, since Wicomico County is leasing the property to a private entity and without any public purpose, there can be no exemption for such use under City Ordinance 2716, which would only apply if the leasee is the city, the county, or the state of Maryland, and provided that the use is for a public purpose. In this case, Livewire Media is the leaseholder, not the county, and the events sanctioned under the lease are both private and exclusive. Not only does the city of Salisbury have the legal authority to terminate these events, it has a legal obligation to do so. Laws must be applied equally and without exception for the wealthy or those who hold power, including the county executive and Brad Hoffman of Livewire Media, with whom she has publicly admitted to having a long-standing friendship. If the city fails to enforce its own ordinances and the laws of the state of Maryland to protect the public interest, then why should anyone have any respect for the law whatsoever? Furthermore, by failing to enforce the zoning code, the city will have opened Pandora's box by setting a precedent, thus making future code enforcement efforts problematic and potentially leaving the city exposed to legal consequences when the same unlawful exceptions are denied to others. It is clear that safari at the quarry serves no public purpose and is therefore prohibited under the city zoning ordinance in this residential zoning district. As such, I respectfully request that the mayor and council fulfill their obligation to enforce the law and stop these off-road events from taking place. By doing so, not only will you be upholding the sanctity of the law, but you will also be protecting the Paleo Channel, the Wycomico River, and other natural resources while helping to bring the promise of Connolly Mill Park to fruition, thus ensuring that it is forever protected and available to all residents of Salisbury and surrounding communities, not just to a select few. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. That was a very detailed and thorough explanation of, I know you and a couple of the residents from the Shadow Hills and Connolly Mill group. I know you came back before last month or a month before last, so thank you for coming back and explaining that. I have a few questions, and then I know that a couple of my council members and perhaps the mayor will have a few questions for you or your group as well. Actually going to legal, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at this, and if not, I want you to repeat the ordinances and the details that the city has to uphold in order to make sure that we do our due diligence. And I want our legal team to make sure that we look beyond that and see where our purview is. So I heard ordinance number, was it 23?
Oh, let me see if I can find that in this pile of paper
Is it
here.
2716. Okay.
2716.
So ordinance number 2716. And you are stating that residence or that area of land is in zoning code R-8A.
Yes, sir.
Great, okay.
I believe that's correct.
That is, okay. Great, yep, Title 17. That were the two questions that I had before we kind of get into the weeds here and we ask questions. Councilwoman Blake, I know you had your hand up.
I do. The environment is very, very important to me. I do have some questions, and they're easy ones. They're usually yes or no. Mayor Taylor, do I understand that you and the executive of the county said this was okay to go on? She asked you recently, and you met, and you agreed to it?
We talked generally about it, but I thought it was already in the green in terms of the zoning. I mean, I did some work on it this week, or last week, into this week.
Okay.
So I don't know what you mean by that, but no.
Well, I didn't know if you had given it a go-ahead or not. So I was just asking. I'm just asking where we are as a city on both the administrative and the legislative branch. Does the city have an MOU with the county in regards to the proposed property by any chance? I mean, it sounds like a city-county thing, and does that even exist? Do we have a memorandum of understanding with the county on the actual use of that property? Okay. The other thing, is the city, and for that matter, the county aware, and I'm sure the city is, but one of the things that I am very, very concerned about is the Paleo water channel that runs directly through that property. Now, considering that, one, it's a huge water supply to thousands of people, but the city has spent thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on maintenance, monitoring, and being responsible for the very drinking water for thousands of people. And we don't know about this car thing or this event. Was the county aware, or is anyone else aware that the Paleo Channel runs through there? Okay. All right.
Can I add something?
Yes.
The parcel that the Paleo Channel runs through is parcel 168. You have three parcels that comprise the 234 acres, parcels 167, 168, and 169. Interestingly, parcel 168 is supposed to be excluded from use. It is not being excluded from use. It's unless there has been an addendum to the lease, then they are using that parcel 168 where the Paleo Channel runs without any contractual authorization. It's the largest of the three parcels and
Of
the one that
course.
extends furthermost to the south.
Of course, it would be the largest. That deeply, deeply concerns me. Did the city by chance, did you guys consult with Corey about this?
I'm just a little confused. We're having a presentation about an event that is being defined and described by someone who is not part of the event. So without fact-checking the information, without understanding that type of stuff, this isn't the event promoter talking about an event he's having. This is
Right.
a neighbor
So-
who has a decision or presenting information that has not been double-checked by us. So it is very complicated for
I
us
guess-
to comment
So that there's not-
on specifics
Sure.
of an event that is not being presented by and the county's not here to talk about it. The event promoter's not here to talk about it. So I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of detail in this
Well,
conversation.
I can understand all of that, but these questions actually, let's take the event off the table. Let's say they were going to, stomp a bunch of, have a three-ring circus out there. Who cares what the event is? The issue is, this is the issues. One, does the city have an MOU and an understanding on how that property is to be used? And I did look this up. It is zoned residential. So I did look that up. It's true. It's true. The other thing is, did anybody consult with Corey, our expert in our water department, and understand the absolute tens of thousands of dollars that the city has spent in maintaining and monitoring and being responsible stewards of that water supply? Did the administrator see the contract? Did you see the contract before it was signed? The fact is, the county executive did sign a contract. We were presented one 2 weeks ago. It was in there, the contract. Did you guys even see this? Did you see it beforehand? Did they discuss it to you beforehand? So this, regardless of the event, there is a contract about the event. So you have an idea about what the event's coming. So we're not in the dark about what's happening or what's not happening at that site. And I just really, it's a very unique property. I think it's our stewardship to be very, very diligent about it. Our water supply runs through there, and I am urging tonight that the city council and the city take a stand and say, no way.
I agree.
Yes.
Thank you for coming and giving us all that information. And as Mr. Kitzrow said, we need to fact check and, get more information. I understand that, but I went through the MOU that you were so kind to give to us a couple of weeks ago. There are more questions than answers in this MOU. It bothers me for the same reasons that Councilwoman Blake addressed. I find this MOU to be very vague, not specific. It's my understanding, I didn't go through, you all have done a lot of work, but I tried very hard just to keep it basic to the MOU and not how you interpreted the MOU, if that's okay. I have quite a few concerns. If it is a public park, then how can it be deemed private for someone else? That, to me, is totally unacceptable, in my opinion. The other thing is if what I see here is the county, whether they're aware of it or not, I would like to think the county council is, even though this arrangement was done between the county executive and Livewire Media. The cost, the hidden costs, what are they? There are so many undetermined costs in this, and I feel like Councilwoman Blake and Councilwoman Jackson were just saying, I feel if you give anybody, take the name Livewire off this, if you give anyone an inch and they take a mile, because nothing is in stone, nothing is really qualified, in my understanding with an MOU, for instance, just to give you one example, is the cost of the city or the sheriff's department and traffic management. Nowhere in here, when I was involved with the Civic Center with the Mission of Mercy, we had to pay. We had to pay for the security. This looks like the county may get stuck with a lot of things, but that's the county's problem. It's not ours. But if we have a say, this has to stop, just simply because of no guidelines. I know that there was an addendum that the county said that they would not allow motorcycles side by side. Who's going to monitor this? Who has time to monitor all these things?
May I interject that addendum says the event in the
Right.
singular,
Right.
where that is in the body of the MOU, which would apply to multiple events. Again, the ambiguity of to
Yeah,
which you're
there's no
referring.
clarification in any of this. I totally agree that this, if we have the ability to stop it, it should be stopped.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jackson?
Where is the certificate of insurance for the liability?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things. If I have to pay for a certificate of insurance,
Yep.
an event at this size should have to pay. So I don't see that, and the liability lies on who? It lies on the county and the city. So if somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, or whatever the case may be, the liability is left, the blood is on our hands. So I vote against this.
Councilwoman Gregory?
Piggybacking off of what the councilwoman said about the sheriff's department needing to go out there, the sheriff's department's usage and that sort of thing, because it's within city limits, what is the city police's responsibility for this? You know, are our police going to have to be responsible? Is this going to come back on city taxpayers in that regard as well? Our police department it works very, very hard, and I would hate to put something like this on them if it suddenly becomes their responsibility rather than the county's, because it is within city limits.
Okay. Andy, I know you had your, yes.
It is a vent between the county and a private organization. Again, neither one of them are here to discuss this conversation. Having come from that world, we, in our position, what insurances, what certificates, their surveillance, the management, the use of that space, to a certain degree, is between the property owner and the event organizer, and what that needs to look like. Since it's in the city of Salisbury, and the discussion point on that property, how it is zoned, be used in this capacity, I think is the only thing that we really should be talking about or have a say in. What they do, is it private or public, how it's being monitored, that is not our purview, that is not our responsibility. The question is can we approve that land use on a short-term basis, singular event, multiple events, without it going through a proper procedure to change that use? So I think that is the thing that I would like to dive into a little bit more.
Yes.
To
If
make
you're
sure.
prepared to, I would like us to, to go into that further and spend some time into that. That was my question, is what can we as a city, like what purview? That's why I was asking legal the question if she was prepared to. But if you are prepared to kind of discuss that would be great. You have a,
Yes, I do. I heard when Andy he just said something that really kind of like took me for a surprise. We have, what you're saying to me, as we have no control over what goes on at that park. And that's not true. Because if part of that land is ours and part of that land, who's to know what a certificate of insurance? That should be one of the main things. We don't even know if they're going to have alcohol or anything. Where's this contract at? And like you said, no, we don't have this because it's a private entity and the county, but the county is infringed on our benefit.
Yeah. Okay.
hand up too. I'm trying to, yes, thank you.
The other thing is, one, our code, residential. That's number one. Number two, for anything else, for common sense sake, that paleo water channel runs directly through where they're going to use. That is a common sense no. That certificate insurance does not include damages to the paleo water channel, and it does not include contamination. Now, that's a fact.
Mr. Kitzrow, if you want to speak to,
I like when people use the paleo channel as an excuse. All of North 13, all of the car lots, all the gas stations, everything on the north side runs over the paleo channel. So let's be careful before we're saying we're destroying an ancient well and waterway because of a singular event. We just got to be careful when we start jumping into those conclusions.
hold on. Thank you.
Yeah, so that would be the one thing, I think, that to the one point about the ordinance 2716, knowing that we are exempt and other local officials are exempt from certain regulations, that is probably the one thing I would want us to look at, because without reading the lease agreement, and I need to get a legal opinion on it.
Sure.
Leasing an activity for an event is not giving up control of that space permanently. So I need to find out if this lease, even if it's multiple events or it's a singular year or whatever it is that giving up control, meaning that they are not able to, they've now relinquished their ability to be exempt from decision-making. I need to get a legal opinion on that, and then that may change kind of the stance.
And that's where I wanted to, I know, again, we all, passionately, I feel a certain way about the project as well, but where legally, how did this happen, and then how do we, correct this?
So my understanding is that the
Can you speak to the
event,
microphone? Thank you.
my understanding is that the event is held on land that's solely owned by the county, but it's within the city limits. That land, and we've looked up the zoning, and Andy, please, if I am incorrect in any of that, feel free to jump in, is zoned R8A. And so the question is whether or not this is a use that's allowed under that zoning, and whether or not it's for a public or a private purpose. I've had some back and forth between my office and the zoning staff and the city planner to try and get to the bottom of those questions. There was, I had some unanswered questions about exactly what they were proposing to do out there. But my suggestion is that I'm happy to continue to follow up with the zoning staff this week and try and get to the bottom of whether or not it's violating our code. If it's violating our code, it's, the same steps that we would take for any other zoning code violation. Those are all available to us.
Mr. President.
Okay. And what's the date of that first event?
May 4th and 5th.
So again, another deadline that we,
Mr. President, yeah. Do you mind?
I think, Councilwoman Jackson, then we'll go to you.
Okay. Yeah, let me just give you a little history on my, so I had a conversation with Julie months ago about this topic, and I just was sort of came up going, and I assumed at the time that the zoning was clear. They own the property, here we go. Wasn't that familiar with it up until recently. And last Wednesday I had the Meet the Mayor event, and Holly came to speak, and we just kind of got into the details. And so I had an opinion drawn by our planning group in the city and talked at length with the county planning group. And the city's sort of in the space of like, we don't think it's appropriate, meaning it doesn't meet the criteria of the zoning code. The county feels the opposite way. And to your point, I think that Laura's spot on with regard to the whole thing, is that it comes down to a zoning code. Now, having said that, the 1705, or 4 rather, gives relief when the property is being leased. This is the, where it says it doesn't apply when either the city or the federal, state, or the county do it for a public purpose. Then you got to get into this issue of, is it a lease to the county? Is it a lease to a third party? Is it a public purpose? Again, it's kind of like a committee of zoning board need to make that decision. I think as a council or as the mayor's office, I'm not sure we can gavel it down. I think we got to look at the spirit of the zoning code and measure it that way. I don't think we have necessarily authority legislatively or administratively to turn that down. I think we just got to turn it over either to the zoning, planning and zoning, or board, or the zoning department, or the planning department in the city. That's my take on it.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the clarity.
Was this voted on by the county council, or was it just the county executive?
No, ma'am. The county executive signed this contract unilaterally. In fact, it was done without the knowledge of the county council. It was done without the knowledge of taxpayers in Wycomico County. It was discovered because the event promoter was promoting it on Facebook. That's how everybody found out. The county executive essentially used a loophole in the contract that I had alluded to. It's my understanding that the executive can sign a contract of this nature for less than 1 year. She signed it 364 days. Had it been 365 days, it would have been subject to the county council's approval. They were completely blindsided, as were we.
Thank you for that. We'll go ahead and move forward to our public comments portion there. Again, Mr. Goldberg, we appreciate the thoroughness of this, and then we'll reach back out, and just our legal team and administration is looking into this, and hopefully there's resolution soon.
Much obliged.
Thank you. Before I call comments, I do want to say it's unfortunate that we are talking about this, and you spoke to the inequities of this, and I know we have some issues with dirt bikes and ATVs in the county, and this, I would be much more apt if we were looking into a way to use land to, for some other way, but this is just this whole, way that you describe this, I just don't. That's where the emotion lies, and again, we can talk about how this can legally be ramified, but the way this was done in a way that doesn't even do well for the taxpayers, it's like where's the benefit, and versus us trying to save a life of someone else, of figuring out a safe way for people to enjoy an area. We're not even discussing that here. I don't see a good benefit.
I don't see a benefit either. It will certainly financially benefit the event promoter, the vendors that will be setting up shop on site, in the absence of any financial pro forma projections.
Sure.
We have seen absolutely no due diligence documents. So it's, I can only speculate. As a former financial analyst, I have a pretty good idea. But there is a long list of documents that I believe should have been submitted.
Sure.
Community impact statements, economic impact statements, financial statements. There's a lot that I would have required if I was in the driver's seat, but we've seen none of it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Mary Huebner. And again, we have 3 minutes for comments, and I know we have a couple, if there's some repeats there, you are more than welcome to come up and just say that you agree with the person who spoke before you as well. Ms. Mary?
Yeah, I'm Mary Huebner, and I live on Heron Court in Spring Chase, and I will be speaking also about Spring Chase in a little bit. My comments, I had written something up, but it's not inappropriate, but they're not exactly what follows Mike. And I think what he and that group have done is spectacular, and I applaud their efforts. I'm the president of the Tri-County Bird Club, but I'm not speaking on the Bird Club's behalf tonight. But just to let you know, I'm really a strong environmentalist, and the reason I got involved was we're doing this 5-year survey of breeding birds in the whole state of Maryland with the state organization as our umbrella. And I volunteered for a block. We bird blocks within the county. My block happened to have Conley Mill Road. And I had no idea there was county or city land there that I could have been birding these last 4 years for this project, and I wish I had. I walked down the railroad tracks on Saturday, and I could look into the land, and it's gorgeous. The quarry is absolutely gorgeous, and I was in the pine trees that Mike mentioned. It was beautiful, and I happened to see a wild turkey. Wild turkeys aren't endangered, but they are in danger. And an event like this would be really bad for that. And I know that if this property were made into a park, it would bring lots of tourists, birders and others. It's so beautiful, and birders spend money when they come to an area. We're not cheapskates, and they would spend money looking at particularly in the wintertime when visitors are kind of scarce. There will be ducks and geese and other birds on that water. It's absolutely gorgeous. We need real parks in this county. Not like the one next to the library. I was over at City Park on Sunday, yesterday, and it was packed. I had trouble finding a parking space. People want to be out in nature, enjoying the beauty of what we have here. It makes no sense to use such a beautiful place for an activity that brings noise and destruction. It makes much better sense to preserve what we have and let our citizens, not people from I don't know where, use the nature that we have unspoiled.
Thank you, Ms. Mary. Yes.
Thank you.
And speaking as a former board member for the Ward Museum, and at least decoy, bird lovers,